May 2nd, 2007, Nineveh, Iraq. The hot sun scorches down upon the barren desert landscape, where the only sign of life was a small cluster of houses. Sweat drips down from my forehead as I scan through the area, my eyes darting from side to side, searching for any movement. Our squadron had a mission to take out the last remaining members of the ISIS organization, and we had just located one of their leaders. Place your hands behind your head now! I bellowed in Arabic language. My voice echoes through the stillness of the air. My M16 rifle pointed at the leader's head, his expression cold and unyielding. As we step inside the house, the air thickens with a scent of fear and desperation. My heart pounds hard in my chest as I scan the room. Me and two other troops look around the house to declare if any ambushes were awaiting, all the while keeping my eyes on the terrorist leader. Our squadron had a mission to take out the last remaining members of the ISIS organization, and we had just located one of their leaders. The leader had his family behind him, a wife and two sons, panicking in the situation. But we had no choice but to keep them with us while we searched for bombs. Suddenly, we hear a loud bang from outside the house. One of our vehicles hit an improvised explosive device outside. Our commander ordered us to secure the prisoners and move out immediately to assist our fellow comrades. I hesitate for a moment, torn between my duty to secure the prisoners and my duty to my comrades in need. However, my hesitation was cut short when one of the leader's sons pounced at me from behind, wrapping his forearm around my neck. I reacted quickly and threw the boy over my shoulder and gave a swift kick to his chest. In the chaos that followed, the leader's wife charged at me with a knife. I dodged her attack and grabbed her left wrist, and then, yeah! I angrily cry out as the pain sears through my right arm. She managed to slice the palm of my right hand before I could disarm her and threw her back to the wall. Suddenly, a mechanical engine roars a great graveling noise. I look behind to see an ISIS soldier wield a medium-sized chainsaw over his covered head. He charges the weapon towards me. The jolt of adrenaline launches through my spine, and without any thought, I grab my semi-automatic shotgun and lunge the barrel to the mechanical blade. The friction created an erratic, chaotic noise, with sparks flying everywhere, resuming hellfire. My heart pumps hard, pushing my rage against the enemy back a few feet. I manage to pull the shotgun away and pull the trigger to leave a final explosive bang. The shot blows off the blade and flying through the man's forehead. His blood flows on the entire floor, dead on impact. I get back up, wiping the sliver of blood flowing from my forehead. I aim my pistol onto the family, my eyes dead set on the leader specifically. My superior bursts into the room. His voice cuts through the chaos. "Shoot them now," he ordered, his voice stone cold. My vision blurs, and I pulled the trigger without hesitation. The leader falls to the ground. His lifeless eyes stare up at me. Not only the leader, but 3 of his sons were shot and killed on sight, leaving only the mother to weep. The shock and horror on her face was almost too much to bear. The commander pulls her on her burqa and carries her outside. I stumble outside from the house. My vision is stirring and unable to do anything to stop him. I couldn't help but felt a sense of regret. A husband and 3 sons stolen from this woman. The cost of war was high, but it was something that I would carry with me for the rest of my life. Refugee Cave, Nineveh, Iraq, 1600. The helicopter we traveled in had been hit by enemy fire and was forced to make an emergency landing. It had taken us hours to make our way to the cave, a damp, cold shelter that provided little comfort. I woke up from the sleeping bag with a hard headache, my body aching from the intense mission we completed. The operation had been successful, but as we were making our way back to the extraction point, one of our Humvees hit a roadside bomb which blew out a tire, and caused a vehicle to swerve off the road and into the nearby ravine. Our military chopper had been en route to pick us up, but the explosion had caused a delay in the arrival. We were now stranded in a nearby cave with no communication or extraction point. As we wait, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease that settles over me. The memory of the mission is still fresh in my mind, and I couldn't help but think about the lives that had been taken for all these years. 2:30 a.m., East St. Louis, Illinois, May 3rd, 2000. There was no time for me to run or to think. The large man with the skull cap placed a switchblade onto my grandfather's neck. The church was dark, and the face of the Jesus statue on the cross looked down upon us. 3 hoodlums towered over me, withholding my grandfather. Their faces twisted into sneers. One of them, a lanky man with a shaved head, snickered as he brandished his switchblade. He spat. "Hand over the money, old man, and maybe we won't have to hurt you too bad." I held the gun steady in my hand. My finger trembled on the trigger. "You're not taking anything. You're all going to hell for this," I said, trembling through my gritted teeth. The second hoodlum, a stocky man with a nose ring, laughed. "What's a little black ass like you gonna do anyway, huh?" he taunted. "You shaking like a leaf." I ignored him, my eyes locked on the one with the knife. My eyes fought hard to keep the tears from running down my cheeks. "Get away from him," I warned. The third hoodlum, a tall woman with a pierced eyebrow, rolled her eyes. "Why don't you just put the gun down, kid? We don't want to hurt anyone." Her lips smacked. I shook my head and felt my heart pounding in my chest. My breathing was shallow and rapid. "I'm sorry, Papa." The 3 hoodlums exchanged a look. They lunged toward me, shoved my grandfather to the altar. I closed my eyes and pulled the trigger. The sound echoed through the empty church. I forced my eyes open to see 2 young girls with bullet wounds to their heads, and an Iraqi man and woman stripped down, bloodied and tarnished inside their broken Iraqi village home. I looked toward me, a burning wall, and then stared down at my M4 with the barrel smoking from it. The pressure builds in my eyes and blood covering my arms. I'm sorry, Papa." My mouth stretched wide open and my eyes opened wide awake. Present time, Nineveh Cave, Iraq, 1700. My eyes opened wide. I turned my head to my comrade, Brandon, who was sitting across from me. "What time is it?" I asked. "Oh, you're awake? It's only 1700. That mission really took a toll on you, huh, Cleon?" Brandon replied. I nodded in agreement, still feeling the effects of the mission. He continues. "While you were taking your well-deserved nap, you were talking in your sleep. Something about sin and going to hell to a pastor. We all thought that you needed a cool code name based on your performance out there. And man, the way you parried that chainsaw, I don't know how you did it, but Hellraiser, thank you for letting us know what America's all about." I didn't respond. The name Hellraiser didn't sit well with me. We sit around the fire chatting about our daily lives. Yet I can't help to think back to my childhood back in Illinois. My name is Cleon Jackson, and I am a 23-year-old Marine for the 412 Reconnaissance Unit. I had been in the military since I was 17 and worked my way up to Special Operations Command Unit. I grew up in a strict Christian household in East St. Louis, Illinois, with only me, my grandfather, and my aunt. My grandfather was a pastor that instilled me a strong sense of faith, duty, and morale while living life in the worst parts of the hood. Growing up, seeing death take shape in raids and drive-bys, I had to learn to defend myself very young and survive in these harsh conditions. There were a lot of things about me that others didn't know, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to share them with anyone. Gangs and drugs were a part of everyday life, and I had seen things that no child should ever have to witness. As we still waited for the chopper to arrive, we started our fire and began to celebrate our successful mission. We didn't have much to drink, just some water and a few cans of beer that had been left over from our rations. It was enough to lift our spirits and make us forget about the danger and uncertainty we faced. My grandfather had always taught me to stand up for what I believed in and to never give up hope, even in the darkest of times. But his teachings have been put to the test when he was gunned down in a drive-by shooting, a victim of the violence that had consumed our community. No matter what he always tell me, no matter what, he always tell me this: even when the Romans crucified Jesus on the cross, he didn't have any enemies. You don't have any enemies, son. No one has any enemies. No one does. After my grandfather's death, I had joined the Marines as a way to escape the violence and poverty of my hometown. I was never motivated by patriotism or a sense of duty to my country. I simply wanted a better future for myself and just be away from that dump. Something to make for myself. I had done things that I didn't want anyone to know about. My squadron cheers, celebrating the success of the mission. We didn't have much to drink, just some water and a few cans of beer that had been left over from our rations. It was enough to lift our spirits and make us forget about the danger we had faced. I look around at the fellow soldiers, waving American flags drunk off their asses. I didn't share their sense of pride in our country, not what I had failed to protect my own community from the violence and despair that had consumed. Right now, my job was to protect my fellow comrades and complete the task at hand. A firm hand landed on my shoulder, bringing me back to reality. It was John, my old friend and colleague. We had known each other since basic training. We grew up in the same neighborhood, one of few Filipinos in the area. Man, that was one hell of a party, and we all had to thank you for it. Too bad we didn't have any babes on board. I should have bought you one of those Pakistani herons for you. You know what I mean? John slurred, intoxicated, barely standing on his own 2 feet. I love you, man. You know that we're brothers. Nothing can change that, yeah? You and that chainsaw, you had me worried right there. Yeah, I know. Come on, let's get you back to the cave. Just look at yourself. You can barely walk. I mildly mock him as I carry him over to his sleeping bag. You have to lose some weight, man. I'm surprised that you made it through basic training with all that beer belly. You heavy as they come. I dump him on the bed. He smacks his belly like King Kong. During our deployment, we had a mission to take down an enemy stronghold in Ramadai, the Al-Qaeda ambush with rapid fire. John took a bullet from me, which saved my life that time. Remembering the fear and adrenaline that pumped my veins, I dragged his wounded body to safety. Ever since that day, I was indebted to look after him, as not only a friend, but my brother. We went through the same place, same pain, same trauma. Unlike me, he wears it with a smile on his face. Hey man, why don't you read me one of those books you got from the Iraqi market? You got sick Arabic learning skills, like you translating garble into crystal marbles. Sure thing, man. I grin as I pull out the book. I took interest in learning Arabic and Sumerian ever since I was 13. I always had a fascination of Mesopotamian mythology, especially the tales of Gilgamesh and the Anunnaki. However, this book is different. Old, beat up, scribbled in Arabic writing. The usual. John knew I enjoyed reading things like this, and knew I had a knack for writing, transcribing along with narration. Here it goes. The Book of Dilmun, an ancient legend told by the locals of the Middle East. Centuries ago, Dilmun was once a land of eternal summers, where the waters ran cool and clear. Tall trees that stretch to the heavens, creatures that are magnificent to the mortal eye. The Bakiari people lived amongst the winds, reserved themselves in harmony with the gods walking amongst them. The Biakari offer many sacrifices to appease the gods. They believe to sacrifice what is most dear and give any living life their heart to store sun onto the land. However, they engaged in the behavior that defied the gods' demands, corrupting the land with their greed. The gods, angered by the Biakari's defiance, unleashed a tsunami that consumed the land whole. Those who survived were forbidden to see the light of day, left the land of Dilmun by the very earth beneath their feet. Some say the Bakiari people rise from the night to continue performing sacrificial rituals to retrieve and feel the sunlight once more. I shut the book to see John sleeping soundly. Reading these John Carter related stories helped me escape reality, allowing me to dive deep into the culture and history. It keeps me sane through these tough times, especially what had happened earlier. I laid back down to my sleeping bag. I made a vow to always be there for my brother, no matter what. Things will be different. Haditha, Iraq, 1900, year 2005. We had stormed into the small Iraqi town across from the Euphrates River, guns blazing. Thought we were chasing insurgents responsible for the IED attack on our convoy. We bursted into one of the houses, yet we found a family huddled together, an Iraqi man shielding his wife and 3 daughters, all shaking in fear. We were here to seize the captives, but these were no insurgents. They were civilians caught in the crossfire of the war, never asked for the war they were a part in. Guns roaring outside the home, glass broken. Some of my fellow comrades shouted orders, while others scanned the room. Their fingers twitched near the triggers of their rifles. We were all on edge. I locked eyes with one of the girls. She stared back at me with wide, teary eyes. Her assumptions begs for this to end, yet I'm not the savior she prays for. But the sergeant's voice cut through the chaos, cold and unwavering. Get ready to fire. 1, 2. I looked down to see my hands, covered and dripped blood. I looked up to see that the walls decorated in red and flames consuming the room. Aim and fire now, Hellraiser! The little girl's body dropped to my feet, face down. Smoke became unbearable to breathe. I forced my head up to see the crescent moon gleaming with the star. The refugee cave, Nineveh, Iraq, 2400. A loud screech echoes through the dark, damp cave. My racing heart forced my eyes wide awake. What the hell went on through my mind? I reached my flashlight to find my M4 rifle. I look behind me, noticing that John's sleeping bag is empty. I wipe away the sweat from my forehead and alert the squadron leader to seize and search inside the cave. The commander agreed and noticed that Brandon Gonzalez went missing during his post. Me and 5 Marines went deep into the cave, equipped with flashlights and firearms, enduring the cave's suffocating atmosphere. The thick, condensed air contains the smell of damp earth within the ancient rocks. Damp walls close in around us, making our breathing more difficult, and see the light dim from behind. I stumble forward, trying to retrace our steps. Jackson, are you okay? One of my comrades exclaimed. Before I could speak, my flashlight spotted a small trail of blood on the ground. Sweat runs down from my cheeks. This isn't good. We gotta keep our eyes open. We gotta be sure Gonzalez is okay, I replied. We moved deeper into the cave, our footsteps echo and winds howling off the walls. My footsteps on loose gravel, and I tumbled down a steep slope, my body lost in the embankment before my comrades could reach out to catch me. I crashed hard on my back, leaving the wind to knock the breath out of me. I lie there, disoriented and alone. I am separated from my group and have no idea where they were or if they were even waiting for me. Everything was quiet and I couldn't see the surface of the area. Shivers went down my spine. I contemplate either finding John or just wait for the others in the void. I guess it makes no difference. Me, John, and Brandon are all alone from the outside world. I begin to walk through the cavern. The cave system is structured like a labyrinth in the shadows, twisting and turning through the earth with no end in sight. The air was thicker and humid as it was on the surface. The sound of dripping water echoes through the caverns, whispering to the paranormal. The ground was uneven, covered in jagged rocks and slick moisture, causing me to stumble a few times. As I continued, the walls seemed to close in more than it had before. I pressed down on my shoulders. The darkness was absolute, so thick that the flashlight brightness has gotten dimmer than it was. I covered my mouth to cough 5 times. The discomfort claws at my mind. Every sound, every movement amplifies in the cavern, echoing endlessly through the tunnels. I step on a hard round item made of clay. My flashlight shone a carved, somewhat of a punic mask with the mouth and eye open a black void. My vision starts to blur after picking it up, the metallic scent in the air getting me lightheaded. My skin is feeling hot. It has to be the adrenaline doing this. Yet this cave isn't just some rock formation. I decide to wear my gas mask to proceed further caution. I take off my jacket to place it on my forearm. My breathing became shallower and I see the walls rocking back and forth. No pun intended. I place my hand on the sickled rocks and it gives a cold sensation running up through my left arm. The sickles loom over me. Sharp tips shaped like blades threatened to slice me at any mistake that I could make. I had to keep moving forward to find my missing comrades. Yet, this atmosphere is too much to take. With each step, I felt like I was falling deeper into the hot, toxic abyss. Suddenly, a crackling noise abrupts the area, as if it was the sound of a bird. I walk forward to continue hearing the crackles intensify. I slowly raised my pistol and inserted ammo into my shell. My ears perk up to find the location of the monstrous crackle. A silhouette of a tall, two-legged creature stalks 10 feet away from me as my eyes begin blurring. All I could make out was its glaring yellow eyes shining in the darkness. I crouched behind a large boulder and turned off my flashlight. Nostrils exhumed deep grunts. The last characteristic that I could not shut out was the large sickle claw on its big toe, large enough to puncture through flesh in one slice. I shut my mouth and my eyelids tight. Specks of dust were burning my esophagus, feeling like a dragon ready to breathe out the fire. A flashback came to me. Images of my grandpa, dead on the church pavement when I was young, holding his lifeless head to my arms. My aunt appeared behind me with tears running down her face in panic. It wasn't my fault. I couldn't tell him. I was afraid of what they might do to me. Siren lights came outside from the mural windows. Suddenly my vision returned, and I look around to still see nothing but darkness. I proceed to walk forward and cough softly a couple times. I could barely see anything with my dying flashlight. It feels as though I'm walking in circles for eternity. Suddenly, I see a flame lit a few feet ahead of me, only covering a small section of the tunnel. It was the only orange light in the middle of the blackness. I trip on the ground to find somebody grab my foot. I looked up to see a mangled body of a man. I turned on my flashlight once more to see an open corpse butchered in front of me. I hold back the vomit threatening to come out from me. I look up to see the head was held on a spear, a comrade of mine, Brandon Gonzalez. My eyes widen and realize that John's body was not found. I retrieve Brandon's bloody dog tags and crawl backwards away from the lit torch. A silhouette of not an animal, but a man with a fur coat steadily crawled towards me from the walls. I immediately ran as fast as I could away from the figure. I always hid in the dark my whole entire life, through gang territory to combat zones, never failed me. However, this feeling tightens my chest, and my throat granted me a sense of claustrophobia. That's when I knew that I wasn't alone, and that I had to leave quickly. The light was a distance ahead of me. There comes the exit at last. Fresh air startled me as it hit my face, easing my dizziness. Before I could move further, a large silhouette blocked my exit. I finally stopped and turned off my flashlight and crouched still for a few minutes. I crawled back from the lit torch to immediately run from the figure. My whole life was all about hide and seek in the dark. Walking through from gang territory to combat zones never failed me. However, this feeling causing my chest and throat to tighten gave me a sense of claustrophobia. The light was distance ahead of me. There comes the exit at last. Fresh air startled me as it hit my face, easing my dizziness. Before I could move further, the large silhouette blocked my exit. I stopped and turned off my flashlight to crouch still for a few minutes. I slowly look up with my flashlight, and there, the low, crackling growl is a few steps behind me. I freeze to refuse to move a single muscle, feeling the liquid adrenaline crawling down my spine. I slowly turn my head to see a large, feathered lizard close to my height, crouching on the ground, giving me a blank stare. Its feathers were black, red, and turquoise, and its eyes still bright in the dark. Blood drips down from its snout. It creeps closer as it raises its feathered arms above its torso, and opening its snout to reveal its razor-sharp teeth. I looked down and saw the sickle-shaped claw on its big toe. We lock eyes for 1 minute as I aim the pistol to its head. Whatever that thing is, it's not a bird. The creature tilts its head forward and pounds towards me with a lightning-fast motion. I perform a combat roll just in time to avoid the assault. I quickly dash towards the exit. The beast rushes after me, aiming to nip off my back, but was able to outmaneuver it by performing another combat roll. I pull out my pistol and shot at it 3 times. The strange part was the bullets barely phased the creature, but it sure has aggravated it. It grabbed my leg and slammed me against the rocks with great force. And I weigh about 180 pounds, 6'3". To the beast, I was nothing but a feather to it. Yet I managed to kick on its snout and roll over to the spear that held Brandon's head. The creature lunged forward and chomps his head off. "No!" I cried. The anger took over my body as I slammed the bluestone spear on its taloned foot. The beast let out a painful shriek. It gave me the opportunity to run across the stone bridge while the bioluminescent algae lit the cave, revealing the exit. I made my way out through the dark, winding cave, my heart still pounding within my chest. Looking behind to see the creature's eyes gleam behind the torchlight, it creeps toward me with heavy snarls relentlessly through the hollow walls. The cave opens its narrow canyon with a void separating the regions in 2 halves. I grab a vine from the wall and proceed to walk on the ledge to prevent myself from falling into the abyss. The hit of vertigo blinds my vision in 2, like I'm looking through a kaleidoscope. I hold my head up and continue to cling onto the vines to keep close to the wall as I walk on the ridge. Something isn't right with this air. Each step gets harder for me to breathe, even in this mask. I found the nearest cliff a few feet across from me. I turned around and pounced on the ledge. I pulled myself up and looked behind me to see the blackened valley stare back at me. I stared back down to see a dog tag on the ground. It was John's. He survived this long to make it here. His footsteps were noticeable on the muddied floor. John, just how far have you gone? The question lingered in my head. I knew he went through that route. But why? I walked towards the tunnel filled with vegetation after moving around the branches and vines. I exit out to see from the cliff a jungle covering much of the terrain. Dense fog enveloped the towering trees, obscuring their tops from the high view. The mist swirls around me, shrouding the landscape in an ethereal veil. One thing I noticed was the blue moon cast an eerie glow upon the land. Its pale light filters through the thick foliage. The sounds of creatures filling the air, including sirens. What the hell is this place? How could there be an ecosystem beneath this small cave? As I was gazing up, the moon's pale glow cast elongated shadows that dance upon the rugged terrain, distorting the shapes and forms around me. The rock dome overhead created a sense of confinement, as if the jungle was an ancient realm, trapped beneath an unyielding ceiling. I step on the rocky steps, and then I slide down 25 feet from the ledge, fortunately landing in the shallow watering hole. The mist shrouds the area, barely able to see anything. I spit out the water from my mouth. Fucking damn it! My M16 is jammed, yet a sharp pinch resides on the bottom of my lip. I touch it only to feel a wet fern latch onto it. For some odd reason, my breathing had improved. I took a deep breath and stood up to fix my mask. I pulled out my Beretta 92 and entered the jungle. The jungle itself appeared ancient and untouched, with gnarled branches and twisted roots that seemed to reach out and grab at my senses. Every step I took was met with soft crunch of decaying leaves and the occasional snap of a hidden twig underfoot, as if the jungle itself would whisper and stir in response to my presence. The atmosphere is still heavy, filling with an otherworldly silence that weighed upon me. It was as if the jungle held its breath, waiting for something to disturb its tranquil facade. But beneath that stillness, there was an undercurrent of unseen movement, a rustling in the underbrush, and a distant slithering. As I gazed upward, the moon's pale glow cast elongated shadows that danced upon the rugged terrain, distorting the shapes and forms around me still. A mile ahead, the temple appears abandoned, covered in shrubs and vines. The moonlight filters through the overgrown foliage, casting a mystical glow. The weathered stone, unfinished, wanting to go to the top of the moon. A sense of uneasiness came over me, as if I could feel eyes prey upon me, hidden in the darkness behind the trees. I glanced over at my shoulder and caught glimpses of figures in masks, silently crawling towards me. I checked my clip, only to have 6 bullets left. Not a wise idea to shoot one of them with limited ammo. I had to find a place to hide. Damn, John, where could you go? I dashed ahead before they could make a move. I rushed through the branches and shrubs until I saw a nest made of dry leaves and twigs with 6 oval-shaped eggs. I look up to see a creature almost as tall as I am, with glowing turquoise eyes pierced through the dark. It walks on 3-toe hind legs, as its upper body leans closer to my chest. What strikes me about it is its beak-like mouth and its large dome head forming a protruding sagittal crest. Its turquoise eyes marked with curiosity. It cautiously came closer and lowered its head to my hand. I cautiously pet its rough head all the way down to its stomach in its rough, scaly skin. It did not see me as a threat, yet something was off. The hairs raised on the back of my neck as a thunderous rumble shook the ground behind me in midst of the fog. A colossal being stomps its flat foot on the wet ground. It towers over the landscape. It moved with a deliberate grace, each step echoing through the air. Its body exuded immense power. What stood out to me was the giant's long, scaly neck was taller than any sequoia tree that I ever seen. The neck's ability to reach the heaven with its massive limbs and hulking frame shakes the atmosphere, paralyzing my body. It stomps away into the thick fog, disappearing into thin air. I look straight towards the waterbank to see another lizard-like being with a hardened crest. However, this one is stockier and claws are more prominent than the other one. Its black eyes strike dead at my gaze. It rises its hind legs, appearing much taller than the other one. The eggs, the nest, the smaller beast. This one's a male, I mutter under my breath. The male bares its beak aggressively. I dash away from the nest as soon as my adrenaline hit into my bloodstream. The beast pounces towards and crashes its head to the tree trunk with a loud bang. I zigzag across the trail to finally enter the temple. The temple's towering height reached high toward the moonlight sky. The architecture cast shadows upon the jungle grounds. Each step I took to get inside, I am appearing smaller, slowly as I come. Stepping through the threshold, it's as if I'm entered a world frozen in time. The interior reveals a vast chamber, supported by massive stone pillars. Beams of light filter through the cracks of the high ceiling, casting ethereal patterns on the floor as dust particles dance in the air. I enter the dimly lit corridor. The cool air grows heavy on my chest, the scent of damp earth carrying the ancient decay through my masked nostrils. Vines clung to the walls, their tendrils reaching out like ancient hands grasping for salvation. Bioluminescent algae clung to the ceiling, casting a pale green glow upon the space, revealing glimpses of long-forgotten frescoes. I looked closer at the walls to see intricate art carved into them. The walls marked with intricate drawings of people in prayer, regal figures adorned in elaborate garments. The expressions on the drawn faces exude a mix of reverence and trepidation. I turned to my right to see a man held down to the ground, with a large dragon open its jaws above. I looked down to see a stain of red paint drawn under the man. I stand and continually saunter through the corridor. I hear thunderous footsteps coming towards me. The sound of footsteps didn't come from me, so I ran out and entered a large room decorated with vines. I turned behind to see a silhouette of the bone-headed beast charging toward me in the darkness, shaking the temple's foundations. It pounces from the ledge and faces its head down toward me. I evade its powerful pounds, barely dodging its sledgehammer head. It screeches louder than a banshee. It pounds its head 3 times, causing a crack in the ground. I noticed its black eyes could barely see me. I had to use my stealth to avoid its attacks to get a better offense. I moved with feline grace, silently navigating the chamber. My stomach tightens as I drew closer to the fearsome creature. My grip tightens around the cold, sharp blue knife. I quickly plunge it into the creature's side. The blade sinks deep into its flesh. It went into a frenzy and turns its massive tail, sweeping the air, barely missing me as I dance away from it. I swing on the vines as I calculate a plan, hearing my blood flow in my ears. Time slows, only focusing on the creature. I harness every ounce of strength and determination and pull out my gun to shoot at it. I leap onto the ledge above the creature's head before it can make impact with me. I lunge forward and seize the opportunity. Its jaw snapped with fury. I grab the sharp blue stone beside me and pounce on its back, burying the stone further into the creature's exposed underbelly. Rage emanates from the wounded beast, crashing the ancient wall stone, crumbling beneath its weight. The chamber shakes. Dust and debris fill the air in a storm of chaos. With the final thunderous crash on the floor, the beast plummets into the abyss. Its screech fades into the darkness. Despite the exhaustion from my injuries, I exit from the confined depths of the chamber. Exhausted and battered, I emerge from the shadowy depths of the chamber. The bluestone knife, still stained with the creature's blood, trembled in my hand. As I ascend inside, which appeared to be a courtyard of the temple, weathered clay tablets etched with strange cuneiform script lay scattered amongst offerings of rusted obsidian daggers and worn amulets. The faint scent of incense mingles in the area. In the corner, a stone altar stood as a focal point of the courtyard, adorned with charred remnants of long extinguished fires. As I cautiously stepped into the courtyard, a sense of foreboding gripped my heart, my breath filled with trepidation. The flickering moonlight cast elongated shadows, distorting the boundary between fantasy and reality. With each step, I couldn't shake the feeling of unseen eyes watching my every move. My heart was pounding out from my sternum. My foot kicked pieces of bone to scatter. However, it led me to a familiar ornament. Not an artifact, but a head. I walked closer and lit a torch. I gasped. My mission has become a failure. John's head, sticks on a spear upright along with a few rotten decayed skulls. I looked down to see the floor written in symbolic swirl markings painted in blood. I look over the podium to see the outskirts of the jungle, the trees surrounding the temple with the moon so prominently high behind the crater hole. I look down seeing John's body laying across the ritual floor, tattered, mangled, and botched open. I kneel down to grab his dog tag from the ground. John, this shouldn't have happened. Why? Why not me? Why not me? I hold back my tears. The friend that carried me through thick and thin is gone. Suddenly my foot was caught on a branch, forced me to trip forward and slam my right arm into a bite of razors. Ah! I cried in agony. I turned to see my right arm caught in a rusted bear trap made of sticks and stones. I lay there gasping for air until the 5 men approached towards me behind the flaming torch. They moved with primitive grace, their muscular bodies rippling with power beneath the furs they wore. The furs seemed to meld with their skin, as if it were part of them. Their faces were hidden behind the clay, red-colored punic masks, adorned with swirling symbols that seemed to be carved by a skilled craftsman. The eyes of the mask were hollow and twisted, that stared right through me as if it was peering into my soul. The closer they came, the more inhumane they looked. Enlarged jaws that bared their sharp teeth, the flickering flame in their hands cast long shadows that danced across the trees. The scarred, black-skinned torsos of the creatures were covered in strange tattoos that writhed and twisted in the flickering light of the flame. Their blood-stained hands revealed their sharp claws glinting menacingly. I could see one of them that their eyes were an unnatural shade of violet with cat-like pupils that glow in the dark. They spoke in a guttural language, almost similar to Sumerian. They took off the bear trap and slammed me down against the dirt with various objects surrounding me. Bones, feathers, and symbols etched around me like their masks. The air was thick and toxic, yet I could smell the herbs writhing from the bones of my comrades. One of the beings stepped forward and presses his carved obsidian knife to my throat as he is pressing my wounded hand with his foot. Blood seeps onto the ritual floor. The other native with an elongated forehead presses my arm further toward my upper back, yanking my head up. Those men are incredibly strong for their size, and their faces are so ape-like. There's no way that they could be men. How could ape-like beings speak an ancient language like Sumerian? This doesn't make any sense. I struggled as much as I could, but it was no use. My arms gave out. This is it. All the lives I had taken, my judgment day is here. Yet, the trees shook and a loud rumbling roar echoes through the forest. They stop and look up to see a silhouette of a large lizard-like beast towering over the tall trees. The size of that lizard is large enough to consume an elephant, with tiny arms stuck to its sides. I feel the adrenaline rush through my veins as it crashes through the trees and stomping the ground with its gigantic three-pronged foot. I act fast and head-butted the native holding the knife, causing it to drop his mask. I grab the obsidian knife and slice the native's throat as it bleeds out onto the ritual floor. The other beings release me and scurried out to escape. The creature emerged from the jungle, towers over me, casting a dark shadow over the surrounding trees. Its skin is thick and rough, covered in feathers that shine in the blue moonlight. It steps closer, seeing its dark amber eyes with otherworldly intensity as it let out a deafening roar, causing the ground to tremble beneath my feet. My body automatically rushes away from the creature. Behind the shadows of the trees, I dash through the small tunnel to my left and slide face down through the mudslide, letting me down 15 feet from the temple courtyard. I get up and ran towards the hill in front of me. I perused the area to see a cave available. I spotted a tunnel half a mile ahead of me, so I proceed to hurry towards it and eventually made it up there. As I rushed toward the tunnel to my right, the bird-like creature pounces from the bushes with its sharp toe pointing in front at me. The movements were so agile that I barely rolled away from the underbrush. I look up to see 3 beasts circling around me, hissing at me, revealing their sharp canines decorated in red in the dim moonlight. The first creature pounces on my right. I jumped back and shot its head 2 times. I found a small log beside me and threw it against the rest of the creatures. I dashed up to the tunnel ahead, yet my athletic speed was not enough to outrun the pack as they were able to surround me side to side, spotting their yellow eyes at me. The lizard to my left snaps its head back, barely missing my face. I shot it back and bounced up to the ledge to climb up the tunnel. The bird bites through my calf and pulls me back down, slamming me hard toward the ground. It snarls as it attempts to bite my head at me viciously, as I use the remaining branch beside me to avoid its bites. However, the creature managed to slice at my chest with its claws and puncture my thighs with its other toe, which led me to scream in agony. As I bear through the pain, I noticed it was the same creature that was still injured from our last encounter, so I threw the pistol at its injured foot. I screamed as I kicked off the bird. I see another tunnel a few feet below and managed to crawl beneath the small tunnel. I managed to use my battered arms to climb up the gravel. However, one of the beasts managed to slide into the tunnel and slice at my back as I make my climb up. I ignored the pain and managed to spot a ledge that is wide enough for my body to hide in. Yet I spot a boulder that was close to me and went to proceed to push it down to ensure a quick death towards the pack. The being managed to climb up the gravel with its powerful legs. Before I could come out and push the boulder, the creature was suctioned out as it shrieks in pain. The sound of the massive lizard crunches it above. It drops the remains of the bird's arms and legs behind the silhouette. The tunnel has been painted crimson with the shine of blue crystals gleaming outside. I give a sigh of relief and continue to crawl up the gravel. The beast's growl radiated through my body, paralyzing me as it shakes the walls momentarily due to its immense power. The sound of its powerful jaws and its growl will be something I can never get out from my mind. As I staggered out from that wretched cave, my heart is racing like the pounding of distant war drums. The world around me was bathed in an eerie, unearthly light that cast strange shadows amongst the trees. My steps were heavy, each footfall like an anchor, dragging me back into the depths of that nightmarish cavern. Shallow water from a meandering river brushes against my boots as I stumble forward. Every breath I take seemed to carry the weight of the last few hours, pressing down on my chest, making it even hard to think. The soft breeze rustles the leaves, and I turn my gaze to the forest that lay beyond. A chill crept up my spine, a feeling that I was still not alone. The shadows were dancing in the beat of my heart. They danced close to my direction. I was able to spot sunlight emanating 20 feet above me. The rocks are eligible for me to climb, as the sun lit the cave, revealing the battle that went on when I was gone. Just as I thought I could discern a shape within the shadows, a distant rumble echoes through the air. The ground trembled beneath my feet, sending vibrations through my entire being. The forest seemed to shiver, its ancient boots quivering in response to some hidden force. I looked behind me to notice a pair of glowing green eyes with diamond pupils staring up at me. I could feel it purring, as it was an engine of a 1970s Nova. I reached to the top of the ledge and head inside the light, as I finally thought I escaped the epitome of hell. My stomach churned terribly. My whole squadron had been picked apart limb by limb. Splatters of blood and guts fostered everywhere. I threw up a vile slop. The rush of anger and rage seethes inside my rib cage. My brothers whom I cared and fought for are all deceased. Then I turn around to spot the creatures. This time, there are two big cats, larger than any tiger. Its green eyes glow along with their muscular mass, revealing their oversized fangs that pop out from their mouths. The cave's exit is too high up for me to climb. I won't be able to climb any further due to my injuries. After all the things I've done, I just don't care. I see the Book of Dilmun, trapped within my comrade's grasp. The Sumerian writing is written within the walls. The cave needs a sacrifice in order to sustain their lives. The two big cats drew closer, growling. I pull out the sickle claw from the lizard and grab the shotgun from the ground. My rage intensifies as I pound my chest aggressively, ready to die for my comrades and give them the honor they deserve. All I could see are the two cats on the verge to pounce. The lost world might have been left behind, but the one I carry within me will continue. It was a dark epiphany, a somber truth that defied the relief of escape. My sins need to be repented. The carbon monoxide air failed to affect me this time. In the valley of shadow of death, I fear no evil, as you are with me. I'm sorry, Papa. I'll see you soon.
Yeah!